All right, so we're ready to get things started here with the pen tool inside Photoshop. So I'm going to double click on this gray background here, and I'm going to go into the Chapter 10 folder, which is inside your Project Files folder, which of course is sitting on your desktop. Look for a file in there called gettingstarted.tiff. Go ahead and open him up. And of course, as always, I will hit Shift-Tab here to get rid of my palettes, and I'll hit the F key here on my keyboard, and I'll zoom in just a little bit. Now, the pen tool here inside Photoshop is all about creating vector lines and vector objects. That is, objects and lines that are completely independent of resolution here inside Photoshop. Now, what can we do with the pen tool and the objects that we create using it? Well, that's what this chapter is all about. I'll show you all kinds of neat things here. But the first thing that we need to do is get used to how the pen tool works. A lot of people find the pen tool a little bit frustrating, but I have to say, stick with it and you will quickly master it, and you'll be able to create whatever kinds of objects you could possibly need. Of course, you can always use the pen tool for close cropping and creating selections and other special effects as well. But let's see how this guy's going to work. So inside this Getting Started file, I'm going to trace out some of these objects that I've prepared for us. So inside the toolbox, I'm going to grab the pen tool. There he is, way down there. You could just hit the P key on your keyboard if you wanted to. And before I start tracing things out here, I want to show you a couple of quick things. How vector objects work is we always have two components to our vector objects. If I single click with the pen tool, I get what's called an anchor point. And every time I click here, I get an additional anchor point. And between each anchor point, I have what's called a path. So I have anchor points and paths, and of course I could continue clicking with my pen tool here, and I could hover right over top of the anchor point where I began. I get a hollow circle appearing right beside the pen nib there. That indicates that I'm about to create a closed object, so I'll single click there. Now, I got to tell you what's going on here. What I've done is I've gone and created a vector object inside a new shape layer inside Photoshop. I'm going to go and open up Photoshop's layers palette, and sure enough, there's my shape layer right there. Now, this is not what I want to show you here inside Photoshop. So I'm going to take this entire shape layer, I'm going to drag them right down into the trash can down at the bottom. Don't need them. I'll get rid of my layers palette. Shrink that guy way down. And up on the options bar, this little doodad right here, this guy here is what's creating those shape layers. So instead, I want to just create pure vector paths. So go ahead and click on that second option there up on the options bar, and we are ready to go. So now when I single click with the pen tool, I'm getting a pure path, no fill, no vector layer. Okay, good stuff. Now here's a neat little trick. I'm going to hold down the Command key here on the Mac or the Control key on the Windows side. That toggles me to a white arrow. What's that white arrow all about? Well, if I click and hold on the pen tool, I'll see I have a whole assortment of pen tools in here, but that's not where the white arrow tool is located. He's actually hidden just below the pen tool. There I have a path selection tool and my direct selection tool. So what happens is when I hold down the Command key, let's go back to my pen tool here. When I hold down the Command key or the Control key on the Windows side, that toggles me to that white arrow tool. So what I can do with this guy is I can actually just click and drag a box, select that entire object, and I'll just hit the Delete key here on my keyboard.